Klasse, I just wanted to make you this little video because I've been seeing in your recent work that there's some struggles about knowing about the verb order in the sentence, so I just wanted to help you out with that a little bit. There are two things to keep in mind when we're talking about verb order. The first and most important one is going to be that the verb goes second. So that's a little bit different than English. In English, the verb can go either second or third. So we have to overcome maybe some natural tendencies in what we want to say. Here's a good example of maybe a common sentence. Ich gehe zur Schule. Notice the verb is second. Ich, our subject, is first. Gehe is second, and there's our verb. So that's all set. That's just the way we'd want it. Down here, I have another example that's going to be good. Am Montag laufe ich Ski. And this also maybe helps answer the question, when I say second, do I mean the second word in the sentence? No. It's going to be the second thing in the sentence, the second part of the sentence. So here, am Montag is a prepositional phrase. It has two words in it. It could have 5, 6, 7 words in. Doesn't matter. If it's all talking about time, that just counts as one thing. So then the second thing in the sentence should be our verb. Am Montag laufe ich Ski. And we're all set. Another example is when it's coming up, I forget whether this is unit 7 or 8, but you're starting to learn more about telling, or you're using some conditional phrasing. You're learning about some weather. So you're saying, wenn es regnet, gehe ich nach Hause. So this is a dependent clause. It depends on the rest of the sentence for some meaning. So we have, wenn es regnet, our dependent clause. That's the first thing in the sentence. The second thing is going to be our verb right here. Gehe ich nach Hause. So then we just have to keep in mind, verb second, verb second, verb second. Now, and the reason I wrote this example for you here is here we have a sentence with a first clause and then a second clause. And this is not a dependent clause. You can see the meaning here, at 7 o'clock I go to school, I learn English, is totally separate. We could just write a period and write this as a separate sentence and it would make just as much sense. Whereas if you just said, when it rains, on its own, it really doesn't make it sense. It depends on this part for the meaning. So when you have two independent clauses, and we have that every single time that we have and separating two clauses, our verb order stays the same as normal. It's like writing two different sentences. So, here is our first part sentence or first clause, here's our second clause, and the verb order is totally independent in them. Only when you have a dependent clause does it change. Okay, so once we have that verb go second idea down, and we notice if we look in this clause even, 7 Uhr, 3 words, but that's the first thing. Second thing is our verb. If we go to the next part, we have the first part of this clause, ich, is the first thing, then lerne, so second is our verb. Second thing to remember about verbs is that any other verb goes to the end of the sentence, or the end of the clause. So, like here we have two clauses. It goes to the end of the it goes to the end of the clause, or if the sentence is just one clause, it would go to the end of the sentence. And they go in their infinitive form. And the infinitive form is the form that ends with N. It's the form that you'd find in the dictionary. It's the form that you see things listed in the vocabulary lists. So here's where we see that. Ich mag wandern. That's a perfectly good sentence in German. Wandern goes to the end. Now, of course, it's only the third word, but the idea is that's still the end of the sentence. And especially in German 1, we're getting a lot of short sentences like this, so you might not be thinking a lot about the verb order, especially at the start of that. So when you start making longer sentences, maybe this issue starts to come up a little bit more. Because in English, it can be hard to break the habit. We'd put all our verbs together. So this is very different than the way we'd phrase it in English. Here, we have ich mag Hamburger essen. Notice first thing, second thing is our verb, mag, like, and then at the end we have another verb, essen, eat. In English we just put all our verbs together. I like to eat hamburgers. If we're going to list things, we're just going to keep in mind that the verb goes second. Ich mag Fernsehen und Musik hören. And it's sort of implied that you like listening to music too. We could say, I like watching TV and I like listening to music, but that'd be just a little bit awkward, a little bit long. We can shorten it, we can abbreviate it, but we all understand, it's implied that I like is in here. So this implied I like is still in here for the sentence order and sending Horan, to the end of the clause. All right, let me know if you ever have any questions about sentence order. I know it can be tricky. I want to help make sure that you all do awesome.